Welcome to the Montgomery County Department of Permitting Services podcast. I'm Gail Lucas, your host. I'm also the Division Chief for the Customer Support and Outreach Division here at DPS. Joining me on the podcast today is Chris Allen, Special Assistant to the DPS Director, and Joseph Phelan, I pronounced that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Director of Operations for St. Andrew's Episcopal School in Potomac, Maryland. Welcome, gentlemen. Today, we're discussing an exciting new building project at the school and the use of off-site construction. And we're going to learn what off-site construction means. But let's start with you, Joe. Please tell us a little bit about your role at the school and what this innovative process or project is, how that all happened.
Sure. So it's interesting. I've been fortunate enough to be at St. Andrew's Episcopal School for 20 years this October.
Okay.
And what's really interesting, St. Andrew's is about 47 years of age. And within about the last 10 to 15 years, we have almost doubled our student population.
Wow.
Now, what's interesting when you think about student population doubling, it's like a town. You need more buildings. You need more infrastructure.
Sure.
You need more support space. And literally, we have been in a growth period for, once again, 15 plus years. And
Wow.
it has been one project after another project. And I've been very fortunate to be coming and working with Department of Permitting Services since I arrived at St. Andrews back in 2005.
Okay.
And so we've gone everywhere from just renovating a small kitchen to adding major buildings. And my job is the school's project executive as their PMP that oversees that. So I act as a project executive and oversee the whole entire nuts and bolts of the project, from design to hiring subcontractors, working with you guys, permitting services,
Sure.
which is probably one of the biggest tools, and actually execution. And that means either clearing a site, building a building, use and occupancy, beneficial occupancy. So, yeah.
Let's back up a little bit. Chris, can you explain to our listeners what the term off-site construction means? And are we seeing more of these kinds of projects in Montgomery County?
Absolutely. Offsite construction is a method of construction where the majority of the initial construction is performed in an offsite controlled environment.
Okay.
These are typically built in a factory where the nuts and bolts, the framing, the electrical, the HVAC, the plumbing systems, those are all installed in a factory setting.
Okay.
And then typically shipped to the job site where they're going to be installed. And so as a part of that process, it's often referred to as either offsite construction or industrialized and modular buildings.
Right.
So those terms can be used interchangeably. We've definitely been seeing a growth of these over the years. The kind of basic model is seeing a construction trailer all the way up to schools, multifamily dwellings. There's a lot of options out there for owners. And what that does, it usually streamlines the installation process.
Right.
Instead of doing a ground up building on site, a lot of that work is done off site, dropping the modular units there. Permits are still required through DPS.
Yes.
There are some additional approvals that are part of the process, but one of the big things we look at is the zoning and land development aspects. So we make sure that the property is zoned for the proposed use. It has the setbacks. That we also have our stormwater management and sediment control measures. So we have a lot of those things that we look at here at DPS, knowing that the construction of the building is primarily approved through the state of Maryland.
Okay. Joe, why did you all decide to build like this? Did you deliberately do this? Was it something that was proposed to you? How did you all decide to do off-site construction?
So it's a fabulous question, Gail. We actually took a look at this back in 2018.
Okay.
So back in 2018, we needed to build a new lower school.
Okay.
And so we really didn't have a tremendous amount of time to build it. And so we thought maybe we could go with offsite construction and then just bring the building and build it literally like, excuse the term, Legos,
Okay.
and just stack each one of the units.
Okay.
But I want to paint a picture. Imagine you're dropping your child off at school. It's about 8 a.m. in the morning. You've got children running around. You've got buses. You've got parents. You got faculty and staff showing up. Okay. A normal school campus, and we're a campus, we're not a school building,
Sure.
so
Right.
we have multiple buildings. When you start to think about the risk factor that goes into trying to control the environment, it changes your matrix of risk.
Okay.
So
Sure.
now, if I build offsite, which literally, as we're sitting here right now in New Holland, Pennsylvania at Mod Logic, the building's being built.
Sure.
So now I've taken my risk factor of weather and incidences happening on the campus with construction workers.
Okay.
My
Sure.
general conditions
Mm-hmm.
is a lot less because I don't have the job trailers there and
Right.
the superintendent and the foreman and all that
Right.
stuff. So overall cost is cheaper.
Okay.
The overall quality is much higher because, as Mr. Allen just said, it's being built in a controlled environment.
Mm-hmm.
So when you add those factors together, even with transportation costs and everything else, it's cheaper and higher quality.
So is this your first offsite construction project, or have you built other parts of your campus offsite construction?
As full-blown offsite construction, this is our first.
Okay.
Tilt-up wall systems, which is very common in construction, which you see, it was kind of my taste. It's like, oh, try this.
Okay.
Wait a minute. This just essentially the wall system came up really quick. So we were under frame very quickly.
Yes.
But now to be able to expand that to as drywall, flooring, electrical, life safety, all those elements are in, and then you can just literally deliver it. I've reduced my risk on the campus dramatically. And then also the other thing is with all construction sites at schools, there's never enough parking, right?
Yeah.
So if I've taken a project that maybe was 12 or 18 months and I can literally impact the campus for 6 months, that's 12 months of additional parking and less risk. And that's what we've done with this project.
Chris, I'm going to come back to you. Offsite construction is being used for this school project. What other uses of offsite construction or modular buildings do we see in the county?
So throughout the county, we see modular construction in a variety. So we see it in educational uses, in this case where you're adding on to an existing building, or sometimes where it is a standalone building. We see it in business offices, temporary business offices. We see it in single family homes a lot. Much like Joe was talking about, you can literally go to a catalog and you can pick out what units you want
Right.
for the living room and the bedrooms, and then they come out and build the Legos, and the process is a lot simpler at that point. So we see that for residential. There are also some innovative products out there of doing high rise or multifamily.
Okay.
Because there are benefits of doing that. So the use of these buildings is really limitless. Just making sure that going through the state approval process and the county approval process, that things are constructed for the proposed use. You don't want to take an office trailer and make it into a school. Mr. Phelan's talking about buying something that is specifically intended to be used in a school setting, so it's part of that design.
So that brings up a really good point. So back a lot of times when people think of modular construction, it is that old catalog design, right?
Right.
So we've taken it the next step, which is the building is designed specifically for us.
Okay.
It's not the catalog. It's like, what do we need? So, we talk a lot of times about schematic design. So the issue is, how many offices do we need? What's the ebb? What's the flow? In our particular case, which is fascinating, the building is from the 1830s. Think about that. So it's an old farmhouse, the old Claggett farmhouse. Now we're taking this modern construction, which was literally designed from the ground up, not from a catalog, from the ground up, to meet the design intent of an old farmhouse from the 1830s.
Okay.
But have all the modern amenities such as heating, air conditioning, life safety.
Right.
And once again, totally custom. There's some challenges with that, and it's making sure that you have like a really good architectural firm that understands, because let's be real, designing for offsite construction is actually different than building stick building design.
Right.
So we're fortunate. We work with an architectural firm, DCI Architecture, which quite honestly, it's been a learning experience for both of us
Okay.
to go through that, and working with ModLogic in Pennsylvania and working with their designers, because it is not just a catalog. I'm just going to stack these two Legos. Hey, here's a pre-stamp. It's 100% custom for what we want. You're seeing that more and more. A great reference of the hotel. There was a hotel that was in Manhattan, 20 stories. And it was designed in the United States, built in Poland.
Yes.
And they shipped it right into the New York harbor. 37 days, they stacked 180 of, let's just call it the modular units or offsite units, but it was custom for that design of the hotel. So as we think about costs and anything, it's interesting. In that model, a lot of times they'll put the furniture in there, the bedding in there, all right there. Because think about it. If I'm in Manhattan, what's the effort it takes to, put in 400 beds?
Right.
So if they do that offsite and then are just swinging it in place, they've just saved a lot of money between permits and closing roads down and everything else. So the benefits are just becoming greater and greater as you start to break these models down.
What's the status of your project today? Are you finished? Are you close to being finished? Are you ready to have kids go in these buildings?
So the building itself is an administrative building.
Okay.
And I'm happy to say that we just received our green light from Montgomery County with our pre-construction with Mr. Scott Brister.
Okay.
And so we're in the deconstruction phase of it. But that's the interesting, that's on site. So what's happening off site? So the off site, it's coming along nicely.
Okay.
And now I'll be more than happy to share some photos of that. I mean, a nano wall, which is a collapsible wall with glass, 18 feet. It's installed. So just imagine they're going to have to transport that. All the windows are going to be installed, drywall's installed, plumbing's installed, wet walls are installed, toilets are installed. So they build this and then they got to literally break it down and then deliver it, put it all back together.
When do you expect your project to be completed?
We're hoping early, probably right around October 1st.
Okay.
So once again, the neat thing is I don't have any weather delays right now.
Right.
Because if you remember, this is the 6th coldest winter in the last, I think, 100 years. Don't quote me on that. But I have no delays because everything's being built in a controlled environment. So the quality control is much higher.
Well, that brings me to my question for Chris, because we always have to ask this question in DPS. What's the quality of these buildings? Do they meet codes? Are they expected to meet codes? What does DPS look at?
Absolutely. So the buildings are designed and built to the Maryland Building Performance Standards.
Okay.
So as a part of that process, when a customer chooses the modular offsite construction method, oftentimes that modular is already approved by the state of Maryland.
Okay.
There are ways to have others approved, but so they have a list of approved modular units and having those designs approved. So they're already built or designed to a code compliant method. The state of Maryland, through the construction process that Mr. Phelan's talking about, they have what are called Maryland approved testing facilities. So those are authorized inspectors where the state will send inspectors to these offsite locations in different states, doing QA and quality assurance inspections as they're going forward. Ultimately, at the end, before those products leave that manufacturer and head to Montgomery County, they're going to have a sticker that's going to be on those units themselves. That's going to be the approval from the state of Maryland that says that modular unit is approved per the state building codes. And then what we look at here in Montgomery County is we look to make sure that when they are installed and bolted together and everything there, that everything functions correctly.
Okay.
Once you bolt these together, we want to make sure that all the electrical, the emergency life safety systems, make sure all those are interconnected. So from the inspection standpoint, our number of trips to a job site is significantly reduced because we're relying upon those state approved inspections. So we have a lot of the inspections, we go out dozens of times to jobs like this where we'll go out a handful of times instead of dozens.
Okay. So it meets the requirements for DPS. It meets the requirements for the client in that it saves you time and money. What are the drawbacks? Is there a con to this kind of building or this kind of construction? Nope.
Not that I've
Okay,
seen.
we can't come up with one.
So the one thing I want to say that's interesting, because these units are being transported,
Right.
typically the structural elements of them is much greater.
Yeah, right.
Okay, because if you start thinking
It's
about
got to survive a
deflection,
trip from Pennsylvania.
it's got to survive a trip from Pennsylvania,
Right.
and no potholes between here and there, you know. But the amount of deflection has to be almost nominal, because think about it: there's glass in there,
Right.
there's drywall in there.
Right.
So what ends up happening is you're essentially building a superstructure versus just a wooden stick built building that, quite honestly, if you drove down the road, probably isn't going to withstand the trip. So it's amazing when you take a look at all the extra structural elements in order to meet that. Now, the one thing that I will say that is probably the most important thing that we did at Montgomery County was to involve Montgomery County literally as soon as we started scratching our heads on this idea.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, I don't know of another project in county where it's an old farmhouse that's taking modern construction, marrying it up to this old farmhouse. So then it just starts with this like whole entire regulatory thing. Like, oh my God, this is offsite, this is onsite. Life safety is onsite. What's Montgomery County's perception of, you know, these modular industrialized building systems? You know what I mean? So if anything, it was the marriage between DCI architecture, St. Andrews, which, you know, I'm very fortunate that we try being innovative. We try doing different things,
Sure.
and having the foresight to be able to do that. And then marrying up with people at DPS, because honestly, there was some people that were like, okay, that's different. Okay, yeah, nope, that makes sense. And then it just really became this labyrinth of how do we get through this? And without that partnership, if I would have just submitted the blueprints, I think we would have hit the stone wall. And so, you know, Mr. Allen and some others were on many pre-designed phone calls, because you guys came back with a lot of different questions for us. And we wanted to make sure that we were answering them through the design process up front.
And that has been a commercial for our pre-design consultations,
Oh,
which we
I didn't mean it that way. So yeah, but it's important.
Thank you. That's one of the things that we encourage anybody starting a project, and certainly a major project like this. We try to encourage a pre-design consultation so we can marry up your design team with your contractors, with our staff.
And honestly, that relationship has been absolutely fantastic, because, you know, I've been fortunate enough to work with DPS for literally almost 20 years now. And on the old days of submitting blueprints physically and coming over and pulling out the revisions and stapling them in. And so I've been around the block for a long time with construction, and having people that you can go to versus just an email is all the difference in finding success on a construction project.
Absolutely.
So that's where I think the pre-construction process is really critical.
Chris, if our listeners are interested in trying this or investigating whether offsite construction would work for them, how do you suggest they get started?
So there are two main avenues. Joe made a great point about the pre-design consultations. That's always something we recommend. It's especially in a complex project, whether it be new construction additions with modular, always start with the pre-construction meeting. That way we can get introduced to the project. We know where you are as an owner, as a contractor. And a lot of times, like Joe said, it's an exploration of, you know, the built environment is always changing in Montgomery County and throughout the state. And there's always new products, and we're interested in always to learn what those new things are and how we can implement those. So a lot of times for us as building officials, it's to educate ourselves so that we are up to date on these things. The second kind of person you want to contact is the Maryland Department of Labor, the Building Codes Administration. So they are the organization that regulate the statewide building codes. They also handle the modular and industrialized building process. So when a manufacturer wants to produce a modular unit, they go through their process, and that gets into the inspections that I mentioned earlier, the offsite inspection. So it is a combination of going through the state permitting and approval process, and then coming through DPS. Because at the end of the day, the that unit is going to reside here in Montgomery County.
Right,
So the
right.
building permit through us is to make sure that the end installation, the use of that is going to be safe for our residents, students, business owners, and everybody that would use that building.
So we're talking about modular building. What's the difference between modular building and mobile homes or mobile building, if I can say it that way, a mobile building and a modular one?
So a common misconception of offsite construction is some people think that modular and mobile are the same thing.
Okay.
So modular homes or modular construction in any capacity are things that are built to the Maryland Building Performance Standard. So they're used to Maryland building codes. They're installed to the Montgomery County code when they're installed here in Montgomery County or any other jurisdiction. A mobile home is built to federal HUD standards.
Okay.
So there are slightly different construction standards there.
Okay.
The main difference of those is permanency. Usually they are the mobile homes and modulars can sometimes be transported on permanent chassis. The difference is once it's there, is it going to stay there?
Okay.
So a mobile home has the ability to move that from one property to another.
Okay.
Or typically modular,
Okay.
you set it to one time and it's there forever.
Okay.
Or as a building can be there forever. So that is the main difference. It's the end use. Is it permanent? Is it not? Is it movable? Is it not? So modular is not necessarily mobile.
It's literally tied into a foundation system.
Right.
So a foundation is literally designed for that. So, which makes it really different because it's permanency, like you said.
Chris, what is DPS's role in these buildings? If there are third-party inspections that are done or offsite inspections that are done, what's DPS's role once someone decides they want to build like this?
So from an inspection standpoint, there's two main phases to this. There's the first part of the phase, the foundation. So whether it be a concrete or a block wall foundation, there's got to be something to set the building on.
Okay.
So that gets built. Either Montgomery County will inspect it, or we'll have an authorized third-party inspector do that. So then once the units arrive and are interconnected, then we typically go right into the final inspection stages. So that's where our building inspectors, electrical, fire inspectors will all go out to make sure that the end use installation is there. If, as an example, in modular construction, the walls already have the wiring behind the drywall.
Okay.
The plugs are there. So
Right.
someone has to go and make that final connection of the power from the modular unit to what comes from the utility.
Okay.
The same would come for WSSC. They make their final connection. And from our building and fire inspectors, we make sure that the life safety systems are working properly.
Okay.
Is it required to be a sprinkler building or a fire alarm building, which not all buildings are? Do we have our exit signs, emergency lights? Do things function
Sure.
like they should?
Sure.
So at the end of the day, the hope is it's going to operate like any other building that we use.
So an applicant still needs trade permits. They need electrical, mechanical, plumbing permits, and they need our fire and life safety permits.
Absolutely. I can't emphasize enough trade permits. I think a lot of owners that I've dealt with in the past will focus on the buildings here, we're good to go. But
Right.
there are those
Right.
other steps that can integrate. You want to make sure your electrical, your plumbing, and if you are required to have a fire alarm system, I know you mentioned that this is going to be used as offices, but if it was going to be used as classrooms, it would be required to have a fire alarm system, and that's something that we want to make sure that the fire alarm system operates, that it rings out to the fire department.
Okay.
So we want to make sure that all that integrates properly.
Okay. Joe, I'm going to come back to you one more time. Is this how you're going to build in the future? Is this how you build if you need to expand St. Andrews a little more?
I would say at this point, absolutely. Because once again, we're reducing our impact to our overall community between parking, faculty, staff, and student safety.
Sure.
And we can actually reduce our impact on the campus significantly, just essentially preparing the foundation and installing the building.
Okay. Joe, we always ask our guests on the podcast to leave our listeners with 3 tips or 3 lessons learned about their project. Give us 3 pieces of wise input about doing offsite construction.
Definitely pre-design consultation.
Okay.
2, try working with a architect that, quite honestly, understands Offsite.
Okay.
You know, for both of us, DCI, they've done an amazing job of putting so many resources into learning Offsite because it really is different. 'Cause you got
Okay.
to remember, you still got to tear it apart.
Right.
And then I would say number 3 is, quite honestly, make sure that you work with your stakeholders to make sure that you are getting their expectations met. Because a lot of times people design buildings in a bubble.
Okay.
And, when you start thinking about offsite construction, when is it going to be delivered? What is it going to look like? How is it going to feel?
Right.
So those 3 things are, really critical. The one last thing that I would love to say about that is when you see the aha moment,
Okay.
okay? And we get the aha moment of, and I was talking to you before, it's like sod. Right now, people see this old building and, it's all of a sudden they're going to go away for summer. And literally within 48 hours, a 3,000 square foot addition will be put on place, will be connected to the building.
Okay.
And they're going to be like, wait a minute, I just went away for the weekend and now this is here. So when you can do that for your community and have that type of impact, that's something that you always want to focus on because you've created a safer, better environment for them.
Chris, Joe, gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the podcast today. Appreciate you being here. Remember, we are here to help you, our customers, succeed. It's important to know when to get a permit and why you need a permit. If you have questions about the permitting process, you can reach out to our customer support team by dialing 311 if you're in Montgomery County or 240-777-0311 if you're out of Montgomery County. You can also come to our office at 2425 Reedy Drive. We're on the 7th floor, and we're open Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 4 o'clock p.m. We have folks in-house, we have folks in person that can assist you and help you with your project and answer any questions that you may have. Again, gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the podcast today, and thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Please check out the Montgomery County Department of Permitting Services website at montgomerycountymd.gov/DPS to find information and resources to help you with your next project. If you found this podcast helpful, please subscribe and share it with your friends and with your family. Make sure you always get our latest episode. If you have a question or a comment you'd like to see or a suggestion for a topic for one of our podcasts, please reach out to DPS at dps.podcast@montgomerycountymd.gov. Thank you for joining us today, and remember, DPS is your project partner.
This podcast is brought to you by County Cable Montgomery, your source for news and information from the Montgomery County government. Connect with us via cable, Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube by searching for County Cable MoCo.